Well, Darren, thank you so much for joining us on Hope 1032. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
And it's good news to see that you are going to be coming out to Australia. Forgive me, but is this the first time you've been to Australia, or is this a sort of second visit?
Well, I went to Australia. Hold on, let me ask my wife. Heidi, when did we go to Australia? We were only young, weren't we? 20 years ago. My wife's
Wow.
upstairs. I can't really remember much about it. Um, but I have a really good friend now called Nathan Tasker. I don't know if you know Nathan. I made him become really close over the past couple of years. And so just him telling me stories of home, and it reminds me of how similar, the Aussies and the Irish are. So I'm hoping we'll be well received and we won't offend too many people, or vice versa.
It's hard to offend us, so I think you'll fit in just perfectly. But what inspired the trip? Why did you feel like it was time to bring We Are Messengers down under?
Going to Australia, touring in Europe, Asia, doesn't make any sense financially for a band whatsoever, right? But if we truly love this message that God has given us, we're going to want to share that with as many people as far and wide as possible. And I think God has used our songs and our music in Australia to speak to people who are sick and tired of being sick and tired, to speak to people who want to admit that they're wrestling with mental health, that they want to admit they're struggling with doubt, to speak to people who are tired of describing Jesus in metaphors and want someone to just go, hey, Jesus came in flesh and bone. He wraps his arms around you in your heartache and your disappointment and your brokenness, and he doesn't leave you there. He takes you with him if you're willing to go for a walk. And so I want to share that in Oz. And I have this deep-seated joy in me. And I'm not talking about some goofy happiness that I have to drum up and feel excited about. I'm talking about a thing that the world couldn't give me. And I found it in him. And it's in our music, it's in our songs, it's in our show. Yeah, and honestly, I think the Aussies are going to be like good crack. Like, I think we're going to have a laugh. I think people are going to shout things and they're going to jump and sing and holler. And I want that. Like, at the end of the day, we're a rock and roll band. And I want to go where the people want to sing and clap and shout and jump. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. And I'm not even pretending to be excited. I really am.
We appreciate that. I mean, that authenticity, I think, is something that people can feel, and if you're not being authentic, audiences, fans, they can see right through that.
Yeah, especially the younger, especially teenagers and 20s, they're so cynical. But that's part of what we do as a band too. We remind people that cynicism is going to steal all of your joy. We have a culture where people are running to materialism. They're caught in pornography and sensuality. They're over-medicating because life is too hard and it's chaotic. And all we want to do is for an hour and a half or 2 hours is remind people it's okay to feel that way, but there is a God, there is a mighty Savior who loves you, who is real, who is for you, who is working all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purposes. And we want people to have a good time. Sometimes church feels like a funeral, and it's not a funeral. This is a celebration. Have you ever been to church, right, where you get the communion cup, right? And everyone's taking communion, and all of a sudden, everybody looks miserable. I can't do it. I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. I was a dead man, and this cup represents my salvation. It represents my escape. Jesus is to be enjoyed, to be celebrated, and to be celebrated with others. So, yeah, like, I'm just so old that I don't want to pretend anymore. So when we come to, Australia, what we're not going to do is just paint by numbers. Every city, every night's going to be different. And we're going to go where Holy Spirit's going. And we're going to feel what the crowd is feeling. And we're going to give them what we hope they need, not what they want. The Rolling Stones said it better.
How do you get to that place where you feel such a sense of security and, I suppose, confidence in faith and in the joy that your faith has brought you?
There is no way to get to joy unless you go through suffering. And I think what it is it's looking back at the goodness of God over many years of walking with him through all the disappointments, through all the heartache, through all the loss and grief, and realizing that he was consistent and steady and good in all of it. And so when you look back and you see how good he has been, you can really lean on that. Like, I really do lean on that. I'm not afraid of tomorrow or next year or 20 years. Like, all I want is what's right in front of me right now to be present in that. And it's not easy because I'm an artist and I'm a musician and I'm always thinking of what's next creatively. But for me, my hope's not found in me because I'm a really duplicitous man. I will let everybody down. My hope is found in the one who never forsakes, who never leaves, who never pushes me away. Yeah, so I'm not confident in me. I'm confident in him
Mm.
because time and time again he has proven himself to be ridiculously wonderful. And that's the message of this band is that in your brokenness, Christ is wonderful. In your loss, Christ is wonderful. In your grief, he's wonderful. In your sin, he's wonderful. And in your salvation, he's wonderful.
And the new album, it's called Where the Joy Is. I feel like you've given us a bit of a taste of what the heartbeat of it is going to be, but where does the music on that album take us?
Oh, it's just all bangers. I remember going into the studio and saying, I don't want to write any songs, that we think the record label want or Christian radio wants or streaming wants. I just want to write 14 anthems that I can turn up, go bonkers, roll the window down, sing these big anthems at the top of my lungs because I'm not trying to pretend I'm in some emotional pit because I'm not. I was 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But these days, I'm not. These days, I know that I am a very, very blessed man. I have everything I need in Jesus. And so, Where the Joy is an album that talks about those situations, those circumstances, and reminding you that joy isn't a place, it's a disposition. And a grateful heart doesn't need convincing about how good God is.
And it's something that I think will resonate with so many people right now. You know, the last few years especially have looked different for all of us, but I think there's been this common sense of heaviness, right? That a lot of people just feel
Yeah.
like we need it to lift.
I have 4 kids, right? And I look at what they're facing. I didn't have to face that growing up. I didn't have to, you know, just the hypersexuality even that exists in our cultures, the access to social media where your whole life revolves around likes and dislikes and people tearing you apart. How would people not be heavy? My mind, my heart wasn't created to deal with Palestine, Israel, uh, this Central Republic of, I don't know, Congo or wherever it may be, the crisis in Venezuela. Do you know, our hearts weren't ever meant to carry all of that. We were supposed to be in community, loving the people near us, taking care of what was around us. And I think we all carry way too much pressure, way too much weight, way too much hurt. And I think we just need to slow down a wee bit. Like I live
Mm.
in between two mountains in the hills in Tyrone in Ireland. And outside it's -4 degrees, right? I can see every star in the sky. We've got a solar power and a generator, right? We're not even on the grid. And I have
Mm.
everything I need. Everything I need. And when I go into the world and I'm trying to achieve and accomplish and be something, I'm never enough. I'm never good enough. I'm never what I hoped I would be. But resting in the arms of Jesus, I don't feel that pressure, that weight, that darkness. And so this band, what we want to do is call you home. Call you home to Jesus. Call you home to a cup of tea and a bowl of soup with Jesus in a rock and roll concert.
I love the sound of that. Like, yes, please, let's all show up. I also love the feeling of, rest and slowness that you speak about. And I know that's difficult sometimes for people to find in whatever their
Mm.
lifestyle might look like. But is it something that you've intentionally gone after creating that space, or is it just getting a little bit older and accepting a little bit of that sort of slower pace that has allowed you to get there?
No, you had to fight for it. I had to fight for it. Like I have the most wonderful wife and children, and I have been gone so much in the past 10 years. I've missed so many daddy-daughter dancers and birthdays and anniversaries and first days at school, and so in the last 2 or 3 years, we put a plan in place to cut our touring back to a place that would work for us. So we're one of the first bands, Christian bands in America, who have set our touring up that we will be gone 16 weeks next year. That's it, 16 weeks. But we will still do 75 to 80 shows, which takes care of our teams and their families. But I had to fight for that because in doing so, I risk my career. I do. I'm risking my career. But if the world wants my career that bad, they can go and have it. I want to be a good daddy, a good husband, and I want to know Jesus. And I find that since we've made that change, the crowds at our concerts have grown and grown and grown. The streaming is growing. The career is growing all by itself, because we're putting the right things first. Trying to, like, listen, I'm a man. You know enough men in your life. We have a habit of letting everybody down, right? I'm trying to do the right things at the right time, and that's all I can do. And God has been really sweet with it.
And you don't have to carry it all, right? Like it's all of us have to like make these choices and work things out as we go. But I think surely you'll find a deeper respect and a deeper connection with fans because they're seeing who you are, not just as a musician, but also as a man, as a dad, as a father, you know, wanting to bring humanity, I suppose, into your professional career.
Yeah, and even when you come to the show, like when people come out to the show, what they're not going to see is me jumping off stage with a fancy coat on, you know? Like look at me. I'm a graying, bearded, beanie wearing, 5'7", chunky Irishman, right? I am not an impressive man. And what the world doesn't need is more impressive men on stages. We need men and women on stages who are soaked in the goodness of God. And I really believe that my team is, that my family is, that I am. And so when people come, what they're going to get is a very blue-collar working class band singing anthems about life, death, and the in-between. And those are the kind of bands I grew up loving. You know, I wasn't a fan of personalities or big egos. I was a fan of like men and women who knew how to share the truth of their lives and made me feel like I was sitting in their living room. And this is, our band has been that for many people, and I hope that it's that for all the Aussies that come out, you know?
Yeah, well, we can't wait to have you. And the description you have just given us, you're going to fit in perfectly in Australia because, I mean, we're not, I'm going to speak for myself. We're not that impressive a bunch of people, so you'll just fit in just perfectly. I don't know if that's a compliment or an absolute insult, but you're going to fit in.
I think you're distinctly more impressive than the Irish. But no, I really feel a kinship there. And again, my buddy Nathan Tasker just, you know, I will say this about Nathan. I don't know if you know Nathan Tasker. He's an Aussie, and he carries in him a real ordinary, kind, decent spirit that I have missed in America. And he calls ball on my nonsense, and we talk about Calvinism, and we talk about life and death and all the serious things, but we have a laugh, we have the crack, you know? And I think that's what Aussies do really, really well. So I don't want to come down for some boring, curmudgeon, lo-fi, looking at my shoes, trying to be impressive. I want to come for a party. I want to come for a good time. I want to leave you with a little bit more of the joy of the Lord. And I think that's what you guys will leave us with too.
Absolutely, Darren. We cannot wait to have you. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
It has been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Cheers. Everything comes alive.